You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're listening to the Holonet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. From Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway. Today we have quite a few things to go over, and one particularly lengthy interview that I really think you're going to enjoy with J.D. Rucker of the Federalist Party. That's right, this is the first installment of our Third Party Problems podcast miniseries. That's hashtag Third Party Problems. And we're going to lead out with what's been trending on Twitter for the last 6 hours. Hashtag Heterosexual Pride Day. Right now on the Holonet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Let's go.
My fellow citizens, recent events have imposed upon the patriotic people of this country a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any since the Civil War.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
We are called as a people to give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the Holonet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
You're listening to the Holonet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the Holonet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway. For the past 6 hours, here on June 29th in the year of our Lord 2017, hashtag Heterosexual Pride Day has been trending top on Twitter in the United States. And it appears that the liberal world is losing their collective minds. Now, this seems to have initially started out as kind of a joke tweet, and it has gotten completely out of control. In the couple of minutes I've been monitoring it, there's been over 200 tweets. So this thing is just picking up speed, and it looks to be stopping no time soon. So I said for the past 6 hours this has been trending. It's now 4:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So this thing's been going since 10 in the morning. No sign of stopping at all. And just a couple of snippets here. We have Revolt for Liberty at Revolt for Liberty 1 saying pride has nothing to do with discrimination, heterosexual Pride Day. And Benedicta at April_B_J said, the world doesn't need a hashtag heterosexual Pride Day or a hashtag White Lives Matter movement because they aren't oppressed. Actually, I'm sorry, I corrected that. They ain't oppressed. You see, I actually auto-check even when I speak. I don't read things that are written wrong. So, yeah, there's that. But this is just going on and on and on. And somebody posted on here, they said it the best. I'm trying to scroll to it real fast. That, people tweeting hashtag heterosexual Pride Day, it's like 10% actual heterosexuals, 90% pissed off feminists. So I think that's probably an accurate statement based on the spread that I'm seeing here. And it is hysterical. So if you haven't gotten to it yet, make sure you log onto your Twitter and check out the hashtag heterosexual Pride Day. I'm certain that this is going to be grabbing headlines nationwide, if not worldwide, especially if it continues into tomorrow's news cycle and into the weekend. This is insanity. Somebody here, Sista Geek at ClownfishX. Hashtag heterosexual Pride Day is similar to the hashtag Blue Lives Matter, even though blue is not a race. Here's your sign. Okay, the Blue Lives Matter movement is about the systematic aggression directed toward law enforcement. So, yeah, there's that. You want to talk about a group that isn't abused and maligned? Okay, I get it. You're saying heterosexuals aren't abused and maligned and oppressed. Police are abused and maligned and ragged on 24/7, 365. I mean, I get it. They should have greater stakes. I mean, they should really be the very peak, and we need to watch our watchers very closely. But fact of the matter is, you got to support the blue. You got to back the blue. Here at the HoloNet, we back the blue. Heck, I mean, the banner displays in blue and white. Those are kind of our colors, so yeah, there's that. So the sub-hashtag that's kind of going along with hashtag heterosexual Pride Day is hashtag National Trigger a Liberal Day. Because, yeah, the liberal movement in the United States, hashtag triggered completely. So, I don't know who came up with this, but bravo, you're going to get a slow clap right here. Bravo, that's fantastic. Hashtag heterosexual Pride Day. And here's the thing. Gay pride, God love you. God love you. I don't mind a gay pride parade at all. I have no issue with you expressing your right to be free with your sexuality and to do what you do. You do you, boo-boo. I really don't care either way. Thomas Jefferson, if it neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg, what difference does it make to me? You do your life. You do what you got to do. I'm going to do what I got to do. I'm going to be my sweet conservative self, and you can go and be happy and do what you got to do, man. Or woman. Or cis. I'm not going to go that far. There's only two genders. Sorry, guys. I'm not. That's the bridge too far for me. There's two genders. You're either a man or a woman, or you've been surgically altered. That's the third option. So have fun with that. So check out Heterosexual Pride Day. Now, with the last 5 minutes of this segment, before we go to a quick break, I want to talk to you about third parties. See, we're starting off our own hashtag here on the HoloNet podcast. We're starting off hashtag third-party problems. Why is that? Because 6 months before every presidential election, we all have that one friend. You know that guy? Or that gal? That one friend who goes, I think we should elect a third-party president. and they suddenly care everything about the third party 6 months before the presidential election. 6 months. When you can do precisely F all. You can do nothing. You can accomplish zero 6 months from the presidential election. The fix is already in. As George Carlin said, it's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not a part of the big club. So we are right now in the mid of 2017. We have a half a year. Well, realistically, we have just over a year until the November elections for 2018. It's going to be a midterm election, congressional election, governors in some states, but it's not going to be a big one. It's going to be the 2018. It's not going to be a huge blowout, I don't think. I think the Democrats have overreached, and they know it. I think the Republicans are circling the wagons because they know this one's going to be a rough because they're going to be seeing Trump backlash. I mean, I support a lot of what President Trump has done and is doing, but from a PR perspective, he is a little bit of a nightmare. I mean, you either love him or you despise him with every fiber of your being and the passion of 1,000 souls. So, yeah, they're bracing for impact. The Republican Party was also badly fractured in the 2016 primary and just barely managed to come together in time to defeat Hillary Clinton. But I don't think it can last. I don't think the dialectic can hold any longer because we've seen how quickly and how easily a well-funded, well-organized, very energetic populist can hijack one of the parties. Heck, we've seen it twice. Hillary Clinton really had no business being the Democratic nominee. None at all. But through the sheer star power of the Clinton dynasty was she exalted and elevated to that position of the Democratic Party nominee. The dialectic is over. That, I think, is the gift that the millennial generation is going to bring to the United States, is the end of the dialectic. So that's why I started out this series of shows. We're going to do a half-an-hour segment on each show where we really dive into one of the conservative third parties. This week, we're going to talk about the Federalist Party. I was approached by a really great patriot, a nice guy. His name is Alan James Barwick. He is actually the Federalist Party chairman here in the state of Arizona. He reached out to me on Twitter, and he put me in touch with J.D. Rucker, who is the head of the Federalist Party. He's based out of California. And we had a fantastic interview. I recorded it yesterday with him. He was staying at a hotel in L.A., and I was very glad that he was able to take some time out of his busy schedule to spend some time with us and to explain to you the origins and the goals and the setup of the Federalist Party. So give a listen to that. We're going to go to that just as soon as we come back from this break. Today is going to be the Federalists. And as we move through the week, we're going to talk to the Constitutional Party, or the Constitution Party. We're going to try to speak to the Libertarians. We're going to try to get a hold of the American Independence Party. We're even going to try to get a hold of the New Whig Party. So we're going to run the gamut here of the most prominent and popular conservative third-party options. If it picks up steam, what we'll do next is we'll reach out to the Green Party and the Progressive Party. And yes, even the Communist Party. Because the days of the dialectic are numbered. And coalition politics are coming to the United States of America. That when we come back from this quick break here on the HoloNet. Stick around.
You are listening to The Lanterns Radio Network, where Americans come together to illuminate the truth. Turn it up loud and proud until the knob breaks off. Lanterns, illuminating the truth.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. From Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway. You're joining us today for our first in a special podcast series entitled Third-Party Problems. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming to the HoloNet podcast J.D. Rucker of the Federalist Party. J.D., can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, J.D. Thank you again for joining us here on the program. We're glad to have you, and I was really intrigued to learn about the Federalist Party from Alan, our local representative here in Phoenix, Arizona. So I wanted to bring you in today to give you the opportunity to introduce the Federalist Party to our listeners here on Lanterns Media, in case they haven't heard of them. I know that the Federalist Party that I'm familiar with is a party of the 1700s, so I thought maybe we can start there and kind of ask the question, is the Federalist Party that you represent the spiritual successor to the party of the Founding Fathers?
I like that, spiritual successor. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment as long as we have an understanding of our goals in comparison. You know, anyone who took 8th grade civics realizes that the Federalist Party, the original Federalist Party, was intent on making certain that there was centralized power, that there was a federal government, and we weren't just a confederation of states loosely organized in a way that empowered the states to essentially, be their own little mini countries. And that's something that people have to understand today. Our goals are similar in that we want balance. We're no longer pushing for a stronger centralized government. Today's Federalist Party is pushing for less centralized government. We need to rein in D.C. The difference today between then and now is that today, this is what our founding fathers feared. They feared a centralized national government that was overpowered, that had too much influence, that had primacy over the states and over individuals, and that's not what they intended, and it's not what we want. We need to bring that balance back to the states, the federal government, so that the highest level of government is the individual. That's what they intended, and that's what we want to push for, is where the individual is essentially is the top of government, and then states, local governments, and the federal government are the lower tiers, sharing power, offering citizens the ability to have an outlet, regardless of where oppression comes. Today, if oppression comes from the state government, then it's pretty easy for people to go to the federal government and have recourse. But the other way around is a little bit more difficult. If the federal government is oppressing the people, and in many cases they are, then it's hard to go to the states and say, hey, take care of this for us. This is wrong. This is unconstitutional. There's overreach happening. They're getting too much into our business. That is not an easy thing today, and we need to return that to where it was supposed to be, where it was intended from the beginning. So yes, we are, I would say, you could say, spiritual successors to the Federalist Party in that we do want balance. We want to make sure that the states and the federal government are working together as partners to empower and enable the people themselves, the individual American citizen.
Well, thank you for giving us that breakdown, J.D. From the sound of it, it sounds almost like we're successors of simultaneously the Federalist Party and also the Anti-Federalist Party that you're getting there, because the Anti-Federalist Party was, again, we're going back to 8th grade history class. This is the faction that was opposed to the stronger U.S. government and later actually opposed the ratification of the Constitution because they felt that the Constitution created a federal government that was too powerful. And simultaneously, we have the traditional Federalist Party, who actually advocated for the creation of the national bank, and tariffs and what have you, and relations with Britain expressed in the Jay Treaty. So it's a bit of a difference there. And like I said, I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds of federalism versus anti-federalism, but I just thought that point of clarification might be in order.
Absolutely. It is. When we look at it, we're looking at names for the party. We looked at several different names. We actually put it to a vote. The concept of modern day federalism does employ the tenet of both the original Federalist Party as well as the Anti-Federalists. We don't believe in strictly just the core Constitution. We do believe in the amendment. And the Bill of Rights was, very thankfully given to us by the Anti-Federalists, who made sure that we had protections for the individuals and for the state. The 10th Amendment in particular is one that we hold dear. Now, would it be easier from perhaps a branding perspective to say, we are the Federalist Anti-Federalist Party? No. This doesn't roll off the tongue. So it is the onus is on us to be able to educate people, make sure that they understand that we are a small government Federalist Party that is dedicated to defending the entire Constitution, one that does believe that the 10th Amendment in particular is being attacked and has been attacked since maybe you could say all the way back since the 19th century, but definitely post FDR and during the FDR years it was drawn back even further. Our goal is to make sure that DC is brought to bear with what it's intended to do. There are enumerated powers. These powers are very clearly expressed, and they need to be reined in to where those are the powers. That is their responsibility. The Anti-Federalists did have a certain appeal to them, but there were also very many flaws. They wanted to, for example, not have a navy. They wanted treaties to be handled by the states themselves, so that if France or England or whoever wanted to make a treaty with us, they couldn't really make a treaty with us. They would have to make a treaty with each individual state, negotiated separately, and it would have no bearing on other states that were surrounding it. So in essence, yes, if we're going to get technical, if we're going to get academic, then yes, we are the Federalist Anti-Federalist Party in that we believe in the entirety of the Constitution. But for the sake of ease, we're just taking modern day federalism, which is the concept of reining in the federal government, making certain that we do have certain checks and balances in place as recourse for individuals, whether it goes through the states or through the federal government itself, so that there is no oppression on either side.
Okay, so I'm going to hit you with just a couple of quick questions here, just to get a feel for the party planks. Now, I know I've taken a look at your website, which I believe is thefederalistparty.org. Again, that's thefederalistparty.org. I've taken a look at the website, and it seems like the grand party platform is not fully established at this point, and it's a work in progress. Is that fair to say?
I would say no. That if you using the phrase grand party platform, one of the biggest mistakes that you're going to find with every third party and every major party, including the Democrats and the Republicans, is that setting aside a platform at the national level that is supposed to trickle down yields the platforms that we have today, that we've had for decades. Whether it's the Libertarian, Constitution Party, Democrats, Republicans, Green Party, whatever, they love to take a national stance on everything. Anything under the sun, if there's something that needs to be handled, then the national party needs to have a stance on it. We look at platforms as something that they have to be real. If you were to just look at the GOP platform itself, it's not bad. I mean, there's some really good things in the GOP platform, but it's just a piece of paper. It's something that's used during election time. There's no actual teeth to it. There's no attempt to hold the party or individual representatives accountable to what's in the platform. This is why we have to do it this way. You said that I think what you're looking at is you're seeing the platform and you're saying, wow, there's really only 3 things in there. Is that really a platform, or is this going to be a work in progress? The way that we look at it is, yes, those 3 things, reining in the federal government, limiting government, making sure that we are defending freedoms and protecting life itself. Those 3 things, upon those, the rest of the platforms can be built, but it won't be us as a national party that builds them. Each individual state will be forming its party based around the concepts of this national platform. This is very important, because trying to set aside a platform plank on any particular issue that is supposed to resonate for both Maine and California, that's going to make sense in Iowa, Alaska, and Texas, and Florida, is futile. So we look at it from this perspective. We're going to create the core, the foundation. On that foundation, we have those 3 basic planks, those 3 fundamental planks. From there, the individual states will build their own party platforms for their state, and then we look at the candidates and representatives themselves, who also must build a platform based upon the needs of their constituents. This platform is something that will be held to account on. So in other words, they can't just go out making promises like every other politician out there and say, we're going to repeal Obamacare, for example, and then come out and when they finally do have the opportunity to actually repeal it, they decide, well, let's figure something else out because we don't really want to truly repeal it, even though that's what we promised. That won't be acceptable with us. When a candidate becomes a representative, they will be held to account by us, the party itself, if based upon whether or not they are fulfilling their promises, their platform, so to speak. Are they actually going through and fulfilling those promises? And if not, they're not going to have to wait around for somebody else to come knock on their door. We're going to be knocking on their door first and asking for an explanation. We need to know why. What has changed? Why did you say you were going to do this, but now that you are elected, why did that change? And as people fail to meet these promises, they will quickly learn that they can't do that as Federalists. Whether it's losing funding, losing support, we have to be able to trust them. We're not going to be a party just like every other one that throws out promises, that allows candidates to throw out even more promises and then doesn't back them up with actual action. We have to act. We have to be the party that holds our people, our representatives, at a higher level than any other.
JD, that sounds extremely organic and very grassroots in nature, and a party that's certified organic should definitely please my more health food conscious listeners, all 3 of them. But I did want to really point out that the party platform itself and a lot of the articles that I've read that you've produced and you've put up on the site are very reminiscent of the original tenets of the Tea Party movement. So would you consider the Federalist Party and the Tea Party linked?
Not at all. So linked maybe perhaps from an ideological perspective, but the Tea Party itself made many mistakes. One of the articles, you probably didn't see it because it wasn't on our site. It was on a site called Politistic, where we discuss the challenges with the Tea Party. Our goals are definitely aligned with what the original intent of the Tea Party was. But here's the thing. The Tea Party made mistakes from a growth perspective. They made mistakes from an organizational perspective. And in a way, they started falling victim to their own lack of organization. Okay, there was no cohesiveness to the messaging, especially once the last election started happening and candidates started going out there. There was no, okay, so we're backing this guy or this girl or whatever. Different factions broke apart and started backing different people, started looking at different ideas, and their own ideologies changed from what their original intended ideologies were. We're seeing today how the Tea Party, if you were to ask the Tea Party leadership 2-3 years ago about free trade versus fair trade, it would be unanimous. They would be for free trade. That's not the case today. They've allowed themselves to be co-opted in a way that is not good. And keep in mind, I want to be very clear here. Are we aligned with Tea Party members? Absolutely. I am one of them. Are we aligned with the direction that many of the factions of the Tea Party have gone, in particularly with the rise of this moderate style of government that the GOP has enacted, since following the election? No, we're not in support of that. So if you're talking about what the Tea Party was, yes. If you're talking about what the Tea Party is today, I would say no, we're not necessarily aligned with them, because there are, what is the Tea Party today? That's the real question. And I don't think anybody really knows.
Well, I think the Tea Party, as any type of a cohesive group, fell in Cleveland. I mean, me personally, I feel that even the establishment Republicans also fell in Cleveland, and they fell behind President Trump in lockstep because they wanted to bet on a winner more than they wanted to stick to either the party's best interests or the platform that they were seeking to uphold. And as you said, the Tea Party themselves moved from a very free trade centric to now more of a protectionist bent, if I could paraphrase. But
absolutely,
my big question here with the Federalist Party is this a party that has the type of growth necessary and the type of momentum necessary to potentially field candidates in the 2020 national level elections, or is it right now mainly a state and local movement?
Well, 2020 is pretty far away. 2018, I would say we're definitely looking more state and local. That is where we have to begin, and it's something that I know that you're going to be talking to other parties. This is a big miss, and keep in mind, before we got started, we looked at, and you mentioned Cleveland. This is around the time we started looking at every possible alternative. We were looking to see what we could do as far as just helping any one of the third parties out there that has any traction at all. And what we found was that there was fundamental flaws in the strategy itself. One of those being essentially a non-focus whatsoever when it came to local elections, when it came to state elections. How can a party be around for a quarter century or longer and still focus every 4 years on putting all of their eggs into a presidential basket that they know they have no chance of ever winning? To be able to get to that point to where we're making a real impact at the national level, we have to be able to win local elections. You cannot start off at the top and just say, ooh, look, we got 0.1% of the vote. We're number 7. Congratulations. Good job, guys. It's a waste of resources, a waste of time, a waste of money. The way we look at it is this. You mentioned 2020. Yes, very viable. We're talking to people currently who we feel will be very good candidates. There are candidates at the national level that we're talking to for 2018 that are, if we can't support them by then we won't. And I shouldn't say we won't support them. We won't run them as Federalists, because one of our goals is to make certain that we are only running in elections where we can have a real impact, and that impact has to be one that's geared around victory, not one that's geared around making any statements or saying, congratulations, guys, we got 20% of the vote. We're shooting for victory here.
Vote. It's not a protest vote.
We're zero interest in being a protest vote. None whatsoever. It's a waste of money. Now, that's not to say that people shouldn't put out protest votes, and there are parties that specialize in that. I would say the majority of third parties specialize in angst and protest. But here's the thing. It doesn't change anything. Okay? No. We are not here for just saying, okay, so my complaint is logged and it's official. I voted for this candidate, knowing they couldn't win, but know that it's under protest. That doesn't do anything. If we're going to really make an impact, we have to hit them where it hurts, and that's in the form of seats. That's in the form of offices. Okay, and the only way we can do that, our strategy is sound. We've played it by many people. Some people that I wish I could name, but I can't. Who look at what we're doing, how we're doing it, and realize, yes, the direct answer to your question is, can we make an impact at the national level in 2020? Absolutely, 100% certainty. Does that mean we're going to run a presidential candidate in 2020? I would say probably not. That might be a little bit too.
Looks like did I lose you, JD? Yeah, I can still hear you.
Sorry, my phone shifted up. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, JD. JD, I'm going to put us to a quick break real fast. There are a couple more questions that I'd like to ask you right when we come back. Can you hang in for a minute?
Absolutely.
All right, thanks. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, a little bit more time with J.D. Rucker of the Federalist Party. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
America molested by Ronald McDonald. It's true. Has it happened to you? 'Cause it starts with a dime and it ends with a dollar. Makes me wanna get up and holler. Hey! What has it happened to you? 'Cause it's happening all around and no one's making a sound about it. We gotta take back America, 1, 2, 3. Take back America, you and me. Take back America or we're all screwed.
Here at the New Conservative Resistance, we understand if you don't get enough of the HoloNet. So, we've made it easy for you. To find the latest on Matt Holloway, whether it be blogs or radio podcasts, go to theholonet.com or holonet.lanterns.buzz.
I think we could be in for a whole lot of trouble. Hey! What has it happened to you? Because it's happening all around and no one's making a sound. No one's making a sound. No one's making a sound.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway. Still with us on the show, we have J.D. Rucker with the Federalist Party. After some slight technical difficulties, thanks for staying in with us there, J.D.
Sorry about that.
No worries at all. No worries at all. I did want to get in one or two quick questions, before we part ways and wish you well, sir. I understand that it's not a protest vote, and that in 2018 it's not a rush to get somebody to the national level, and it is definitely going to be a state and local matter here for the Federalist Party. However, if you can, of course, from what you said, I know you want to field candidates to win, and yes. I feel that that's a critical piece because not sure if you've read anything that I've written in the past or if Alan sent you over anything. About a year and a half ago, I was writing for The Blaze as a contributor, and I put out a piece entitled, I tried to take the Libertarian Party serious for about a week. And in that, I laid out kind of the aftermath of the three-ring circus that was the Libertarian National Committee meeting, and the convention, rather, and the fallout of their nomination of Gary Johnson and Bill Weld for President of the United States. And a lot of people walked away at that point. I know I wasn't the only one. And as you said, following Cleveland, you had a whole lot of solid conservatives out there who were looking, who were just calling out for a third party to come and save us. And then you had Evan McMullen out of Utah, who decided that he was going to try to wage a serious counteroffensive against the GOP machine. And I think a lot of people feel like we took some wood nickels in 2016. Yes. So it's very, very difficult now to look at the swath of third-party outfits that are out there and see who's serious and who's not. And I think you've made your case, and I want to thank you very much for coming on the show and for kind of giving us a bit of insight into the ideals and the aims of the Federalist Party now. My question for you would be, is there a future Rucker candidacy that we're looking at, or are we looking at just an organizational perspective for you? Because I know your a skilled writer. I've read your work, and clearly a political thinker. So I wanted to see if that was in the cards, or if you're going to be more in the driver's seat of the party itself.
Ideal situation is that I'm sitting in a cabin with my family in Wyoming or Montana or someplace like that, and watching as everything starts getting fixed. People. To directly answer your question, no, I will not run for public office. I love my family too much for that. But on the other hand, I also love my country. And as a proud American, I can't sit back and just watch as these things happen. My goal here is, people say that I'm co-founder or whatever. I look at this, I'm the caretaker, until smarter and better people come along to take the reins. When they do, I will happily step aside and go back to my simpler life. I had built that simple life prior to this. I'd built up a company with a partner since 2013. This is my third company that I had to sell. The first two were sold because I was a minority shareholder. Now I finally had a majority, and I had to sell it because at this stage I can't sit back and just take in a great salary and live the easy life knowing that, or wondering what's going to happen to my kids or grandkids. So 3 weeks ago, I sold my half of my company to my partner and dedicated full time to this. I'd like to eventually get back to that easy life. But in the meantime, this is the precedent. We have to get this up and running, because this is not a time when we can sit back and hope that these other third parties somehow get their stuff together after all this time. This isn't I'm no longer going to put my future, my children's future, the country's future in the hands of people who would select a Bill Weld and Mr. Aleppo, okay, or a party that's going to take and waste everybody's time, money, and energy on a losing effort for presidential candidates, which most third parties do, without actually fielding a single school board member. We have the right strategy, and when and I want to go back to the previous question, give you a little bit of insight, just as an example of what we're looking at. When you're talking about 2020 and 2018, we do have several candidates that we're looking at for 2018. I'm not going to make promises at this point because, again, you never know. But we are taking it to that level, and we have an understanding that this strategy can work because we're going to be focused on those particular races. This one race in particular, it is in a southern state. It's a race where the Republican congressman is getting he's leaving. Okay, so he is going to be out in for sure in 2018. There have somebody who's getting termed out of the state legislature who's going to be running in the Republican primary in this particular state. And he's, everybody's saying that he has a great chance, but he is definitely a very moderate Republican. So he's not everybody's best pick, but he's the one that's going to have some money. We've done our assessment. We've identified a candidate who can run against him in the Republican primary, who we believe that can win. We've priced it out. It should be about $1.2 million during the primary and another $1.7 million during the actual campaign itself. We focus all of our fundraising for this particular area, this particular state is going to go all towards this, and we feel that we can, number one, win the Republican primary. Number two, switch off to where this Republican is actually a Federalist. If he is unable to win the Republican primary, we run them as a Federalist anyway, because we do believe that based upon the demographic in this area, we can actually win it even as a Federalist, even if we don't win the primary. And people will ask, how is that possible? It's because the Democrats running in this area, we can win them. I don't want to get into too much specifics, but the reason that I'm telling you all this is that this is an example of one very particular race that we are identifying. If we can get 4, 5, 6 of those during the 2018 election, build up, get some victories, get some people actually in D.C. that are Federalists, and then take it to the next level by 2020, we have something that other parties have not been able to do, and they've been around for, again, over a quarter century. We should be able to accomplish this. I'm very confident that we will win elections in 2018 and that we will certainly win national elections in 2020 based upon the trajectory that we're heading now. Keep in mind that when we first started here, our projection was to get to the 30,000 hand raiser mark before the end of 2017. We're at 80,000 today. We were shooting for having all of our state organizations started in January of 2018, and we have currently 27 planted. I'd like to say it's 27. It could be more than that. Don't hold me to that number. I don't actually run the state operations aspect of it, but we have people in place who will be able to get things going much quicker than possible. We aren't going to rush it, but we are going to do what it takes to start making that impact as quickly as possible without burning out our engines or making too many mistakes along the way.
Well, JD, I've got just over a minute, so I wanted to just give you a quick opportunity here to let the listeners know where they can find more information about the Federalist Party. Where are you on social media?
Sure. So the Federalist Party itself is at thefederalistparty.org. They can find us on Facebook. It's Federalists, plural, Federalists.party. They can find us on Twitter at Federalists, again, plural, Federalists_USA. They can text us, text Federalists to 53445, or if they have heard this and they are definitely interested in getting involved from whether it's with their state or even with the national party, then they should email directly to join@thefederalistparty.org.
Well, thank you so much, J.D. Rucker with the Federalist Party, for joining us here on the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. We wish you the best of luck, sir. I truly do believe that coalition politics are going to be the future of this country, and the time for the dialectic is over, and I know that third parties like the Federalist Party are going to be a part of that path. And thank you again so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to tell you how you can help decide who the next party will be in the little mini-series we're putting together, #Third Party Problems, right here on the HoloNet podcast on Lanterns Media Network. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
All right, thank you for joining us this week on the HoloNet podcast here on Lanterns Media Network for our first segment of #Third Party Problems. Now, unrelated but similarly named, there's an article on the Federalist.com, that's thefederalist.com, by Robert Trasinski, which I recommend you check out, which is called Why We Want to Kill Each Other Over Politics. What drives people to invest ordinary politics with such vitriol that they fantasize about murdering people on the other side? That will show you everything you need to know about why the dialectic will fail in this nation within the coming decades. We are going to see the rise of coalition politics here in the United States. Of that, I am completely certain. But what I'd like to do is I would like to reach out to all of you HoloNet fans, all the members of the HoloNet. I want you to get on Twitter. I want you to get on Facebook. That's facebook.com/HoloNet. That's at Matt D. Holloway on Twitter. I'm going to put polls on both pages so that you can help to decide what is the party we explore next in hashtag third party problems. Your choices are going to be the Libertarian Party, the Constitution Party, the American Independent Party, and the New Whig Party, just for a few. So you're going to see that on facebook.com/HoloNet and tweet at the HoloNet or at Matt D. Holloway. Of course, you can always listen to us on lanterns.buzz, holonet.lanterns.buzz, and theholonet.com. So I want to make this the first large-scale project of the HoloNet is to explore what places, what flags essentially, other than the American flag, of course, can conservatives rally around if they feel that they have been left behind by the GOP. Because I don't want a repeat of this part of 2016, of the lead-up, when so many conservatives felt they had no viable alternative but to vote for someone who many felt did not represent their best interests, their needs, and their political philosophies. Now, we're never going to be able to find somebody, unless you yourself run, who embodies 100% of our views and who is an accurate representation of our political will. But we need more variety. We need more choice. We must reach an end to this lesser of two evils politics. And that, make no mistake, Trump elected. Because there were many in the party that supported him, yes, that were on the Trump train, quote-unquote, to begin with. However, there were large swaths of the Republican Party who wanted a different view, who wanted a more constitutional view, maybe a less bombastic view, who didn't want protectionism, which is a large plank to the Trump platform, who weren't looking for this big stick diplomacy, which is far more reminiscent of the progressives under Theodore Roosevelt and later under FDR. We were looking for something different, but in the end we had to go with what we had because of the way the GOP party mechanics work and because the fix was already in. 6 months from the election is not the time to explore all of your options. We're going to do that right here, right now, on your home for the new conservative resistance, the HoloNet Podcast, on the Lanterns Media Network. I want to thank all of you for listening. Again, please log on to facebook.com/HoloNet, hit us up on Twitter at Matt D. Holloway, and help us decide who we explore next week. That's next Thursday on the HoloNet Podcast. So make a note in your calendar. That's going to be Thursday, July the 6th, 2 days after Independence Day. From Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Good night.